Boxing seems simple enough. Hit and don't get hit. Today I'm going to teach you why it is truly never that simple. Today I'll be discussing old school boxing and modern boxing. Old school boxing being from about the 1940s up until the 1990s, and modern boxing being from the 90s up until the present day, and teach you the differences between each and provide evidence on how I came to these conclusions. Today you will learn why boxing is one of the longest running international pastimes in the world and how it is better or worse today. I've trained boxing for 2 years now in multiple gyms in Cleveland and Cincinnati, and worked with multiple professionals and amateurs. First thing I'm going to talk about is fighter activity, second competition, and third boxing styles. So first let's discuss fighter activity. The guy on the right there is heavyweight champion Joe Louis. He was the heavyweight champion in the 30s and 40s. And according to BoxRec.com, Joe Louis fought 69 times in his 17-year career. 25 of those fights were title fights, and up until 1987, the title fight was 15 rounds, 3-minute rounds, and then after 1987, it was switched to 12 rounds. Joe Louis fought at least 3 times a year prior to World War II, where he would serve for his country, and then come home and reign as champion for 4 more years. Today's equivalent to Joe Louis would be the white guy on the left, Tyson Fury. He's a British heavyweight champion, and he has 35 fights in his 15-year career and only 10 title fights. And there's been multiple years where Tyson Fury has only had 1 fight in the year. So the second aspect I will discuss is levels of competition. Originally, boxing had 8 weight classes: flyweight, featherweight, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, light heavyweight, heavyweight, and super heavyweight. Less weight classes meant that fighters had to fight at a more natural weight, and they couldn't cut down to bare bones and fight the smallest guy possible. They'd have to fight somebody that was actually their size, and this would lead to more competitive matchups and fights. According to BoxRaw.com, there's an old saying in boxing that repetition is the name of the game in boxing, and so some experts believe that since fighters were more active back in the day, that they would be more skilled. Today, there is constant years of trial and error and knowledge about the game that just wasn't there back then. There's so many new training methods. There's more film to study, and not only that, science is so much more advanced. We know more about nutrition, recovery, and not only that, the average size for a heavyweight in the old school era was 6'2", 215 pounds, and today it is 6'6", 245 pounds. So third, let's discuss boxing styles. Traditional boxers fought mostly the same as each other. Obviously, there was a few outliers that would lay the groundwork for the boxing styles that we see today, but mostly these boxers relied on their strength and durability, and overall just kind of slugging it out with each other. You could argue that this style of fighting made for more aggressive and action-packed fights, but maybe from a boxing purist perspective, they would appreciate like a more technical fight like you might see today. But today, coaches have, developed so many different styles based off a fighter's attributes like their strength, their height, reach, athletic ability, and this has led to a bunch of different styles like the Philly shell, Soviet style, peekaboo style, switch hitting, toe-to-toe. There's so many styles now, I couldn't even name them all. And this adds a lot of personality to each fighter. There's an old saying in fighting that styles make fights. And so the different styles, like a certain style could beat this style, but then that style trumps another style, and it makes for a lot more interesting matchups. So lastly, let's review what I've discussed. So finally, we have discussed 3 major points of improvement or decline, depending on how you look at it: fighter activity, competition, and boxing styles. So after hearing my speech, I hope to have informed you of how much boxing has changed in almost less than a century, from the amount of times they fight to all the knowledge obtained through generations of trial and error. And it truly is a beautiful sport, and I hope to have shown you why. Is there any questions?
What's your favorite weight class?
Right now it would probably be lightweight, like where Gervonta Davis, Shakur Stevenson, all those guys are at. There's probably like the most talent in that weight class, I'd say.
What's your least favorite style of boxing?
My least favorite style of boxing. I like all of them a lot, and when they're done the best, they're all great, but probably peekaboo, which would be like Mike Tyson style. Like when it's done right, it's one of the coolest styles, but a lot of people do it wrong, and they kind of just look stupid and it doesn't really work for them. So, finally, next time you can't decide which era you prefer something from, just remember it doesn't matter what time it is or what era it is, you always got to keep your hands up and your chin tucked. Thank you.